back to this already, the final segment of the Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I tell you, it's your business to be aware of what's happening on the political front. I have been wanting for months and months someone to challenge John Cornyn. Senator Cornyn is in my opinion, horrible representation for the state of Texas. And in fact, ironically, he became, in my opinion, something of an embarrassment. Once one of the true embarrassments, Kay Bailey Hutchison chose not to run because she saw the political writing on the wall. First of all, she wanted to be governor, and she proved she couldn't run successfully for that race. And then it became futile. I think she realized her time had expired. Her type of politics, really politics of, I don't know what you want to call it, compromise, was no longer appreciated in a state like Texas. And so what we're needing for is the politics of principle, which is why Ted Cruz rose to the position of U.S. Senator. And so for weeks I'm like going, I noticed John Cornyn is clearly scared to death in light of what happened to David Dewhurst in his race against Ted Cruz, outspending Cruz, I think upwards of 20-1 as some of the articles I've read. He was scared. And so for weeks we've heard commercials that sounds like Cornyn had an opponent, and although he had a bunch of no-name opponents, he really didn't have much to worry about if he could make it to Monday, just a couple of days ago. Well, just a couple of days ago, with minutes left before the opportunity to file left, Congressman Steve Stockman, a great friend of me personally and has been now for decades, and a great friend of this show, filed for that seat, shocking Cornyn and really kind of shaking up the political world. Stockman decided on this run, a great article at Human Events and now also at USATheReview.com. In fact, I encourage you to check it out there because it'll be more easier to find it at USATheReview.com. Great article explains his logic, and it is very sound logic. When Ted Cruz ran for the U.S. Senate, he said that in the first few months of the campaign, he had less than zero knowledge or awareness of who he was, and it took a lot of work to get him to the point where he had the ability to win that race. In polling that's been done just in the last few weeks, polling is showing that unknown Tea Party candidate would win against John Cornyn by a pretty hefty percentage, according to the article at USDailyReview.com. Thanks to our friends over at Human Events. And I think Steve Stockman could be that person. And although I strongly believe that Ted Cruz is an unusually extraordinary candidate for the times in which we live in, I think people would always want to underestimate Steve Stockman. I have worked with people in politics for years and years, and I don't know anyone with a better work ethic than Stockman. Stockman won that U.S. House seat against a multimillionaire, spending literally a fraction of what that millionaire spent, beating a millionaire and a long-term sitting senator. I think the senator had been sitting there for almost 2 decades. He beat a sitting state senator. And so he knows how to run extraordinary races. Most people had placed him probably in 4th place in the running in what would have been in the primary. He comes in 1st place, has to have a runoff, and beats the millionaire in the runoff. An extraordinary candidate. And so I think John Cornyn may actually have his work cut out for him in this race. And so I want to let Sigmund chime in. You're a friend of Stockman's as well. What's your thoughts about this?
I'm super excited. I think that he's awesome. I think that he's very eccentric and very different than 99.99999% of the politicians out there. And he's just a real guy, first of all. He's not flashy. He's not glossy. He's not, something that I would consider polished. And you're right. He's got an incredible work ethic, and he's right for Texas. He's just right. He's just right for Texas.
far more representative of the values of Texas than John Cornyn, who is the get-along guy. John Cornyn, you keep on turning on your radio, you hear these ads by Cornyn, he's scared. And it sounds like in those ads that John Cornyn was running against John Cornyn. And so,
maybe he was running against Ted Cruz.
Maybe. I don't know.
He's got that kind of mindset. What Ted Cruz did, John Cornyn wanted to distance himself from. Yeah, absolutely. I want to share a couple of excerpts here from that article real quick. A Lone Star State Congressman told Human Events he filed with the state elections office to challenge Senator John Cornyn. This would be Steve Stockman. In the poll, this was because of a Human Events Gravis poll of the state Republican voters. And in the poll, a generic Texas Tea Party candidate would beat Cornyn 46% to 33%. And 73% of respondents had a favorable opinion of Senator Ted Cruz, approval rating compared to 46% approving Cornyn, says Steve Stockman, who represents a district outside of Houston. This is vintage Steve Stockman. I am the generic Tea Party candidate. I know. I mean, he pokes fun at himself. I love that. How many politicians really do that and are honest about it? They mean it.
Yeah, absolutely. He has a very healthy sense of humor when it comes to being human. What we're trying to elect. When we saw that Cruz's numbers were better than Cornyn's by almost 2-1. We figured all we have to do is find all the Cruz people and churn them out. His own 15% showing makes him feel pretty good, the Michigan native said. They had to put that in. By the way, I'm a Michigan native too, but like Steve, really didn't feel like I began to enjoy life until I figured out how to get to Texas. When Cruz opened his campaign for the 2012 Senate race and he was at 2% in the polls, he said, with the margin of error, we could have been at 0.
That's right.
So, here it is, and we've seen some pretty shocking things take place. In July, Senator Mike Lee circulated a letter among other senators addressed to Majority Leader Reid, pledging not to vote for any funding for Obamacare. And, of course, you and I both know that thanks to actions by Cornyn criticizing the work of Ted Cruz, he essentially voted for, in my opinion, Cornyn essentially voted for Obamacare. How do you have a Republican senator voting for Obamacare coming from the state of Texas?
Right.
And really, if I were Steve Stockman, I'd couch it that way.
Yeah, John McCain did the same thing, and unfortunately, a lot of Republicans did. They go along to get along Republicans. John Cornyn, I will say, and he does want people to think that he's a conservative and he's really going to fight for you. And the truth is, he's a slick, politician. He's a slick Washington politician. He's been there a long time. I think he feels very comfortable in his position. And it's like someone like Steve Stockman, who's hungry, who is very mindful of the Constitution, mindful of the desires, the wants, and the needs of not only Texans but Americans. And he's going to stand up and he is going to fight. He's much more like Ted Cruz, who I think, again, is a fighter and who is a constitutionalist. I really think that these guys would be great representatives for Texas, and I would not be sad to see John Cornyn go.
Well, I just got done talking to Steve earlier today. We're working right now on getting him on the show. He obviously is very busy. He now is going to be covering the entire state. He needs to do it quickly. The primaries will be here in no time. But I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to see what happens and looking forward to chatting with him more about it. I want to remind you as we wrap up the show that the best content here can be found over there at usdailyreview.com. While there, make sure you check out this new article about Steve Stockman running, and make sure you like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter. Thanks so much, Sigmund, and thanks to you, the audience, and we'll be with you tomorrow right here for another Price of Business.